All right. So the Western Mountains, if you look at these names, Kathir, Safed Ko, Waziristan, Suleiman, these are some of the important, mountain ranges located on the Balochistan plateau. All right. So they run from south to north. This is their direction. The height expands from 2000 meters to 4000 meters almost, right? This is the, this is how the altitude varies. There are several valleys and low-lying basins, including Banu Valley, Kohat Valley, Valley of Peshawar. So these are the important valleys, the Banu, Kohat, and Peshawar. Guys, keep taking notes side by side, okay? This is important information. These are all the facts that we're talking about. And these facts are important because this is all what we study in Western Mountains. The peaks there are not very big in height. Okay, yeah. If you compare Northern Mountains and Western Mountains, the one of the major differences is that the average altitude. Northern Mountains are a bit higher than the Western Mountains, and in winters, the Northern Mountains, they are covered with snow, whereas in Western Mountains, only this one mountain range, which is the Safed Ko range over here. The Safed Ko range, only this mountain range gets covered with snow. This is why it's called Safed Ko. Safed is white, right? And is mountain in Urdu. Okay, so Safed Ko. All right, now Safed Ko is the only peak. Okay, yeah, that is covered with snow. There are many historic passes, including Bolan, Gomal, Khyber, Tochi, Khurram. So these are the important passes. Passes are all those natural routes that connect Pakistan with other countries. All right, and these routes connect Pakistan to other regions, different states. And there are not many glaciers. Again, why? Because there's less snow in winters generally over these mountain ranges. Okay, moving on to the drainage. The drainage includes Kuram, Hub, Layari, Tochi. This is not Layari, this is Layarai, and Zahob and Gomal. So these are the important drainage rivers, the rivers that carry water from the mountain ranges to the lower areas during the winters when it snows. That's very rare. If it snows only on the Safed Ko, these rivers will carry the water down. Okay. Economy and people, the lifestyle of people in the Western Mountains. So the water drains in the Western rivers and helps in the cultivation of sugarcane, rice, wheat. Okay, these are some of the major crops. You should know about these: sugarcane, rice, wheat, and they're cultivated here. When we were, remember, we just talked about these historic passes. There's one pass that connects Pakistan to Afghanistan. That is very important. There's a pass that connects Karachi to Sibi, and both of these passes are located on the Western Mountains. And this is why they increase the strategic importance of these mountains as well, right? These mountains create a defensive wall between Pakistan and Afghanistan. There's a national border between the two countries. And that obviously the border is also used for defense, because these mountains, you must have read in history, in historical books, that in prehistoric times, civilizations used to defend themselves with the help of these national borders, mountain ranges, hills, and then used to build these high forts and stuff. But over here, the ranges of the Western Mountains, that they also act as a defensive wall between the two countries. These mountains are rich in boulders, clay, limestone, ridges, sandstone. So these are the important minerals that are found in these mountains. Western Mountains, or the Balochistan Plateau, or the province of Balochistan itself is known for these minerals, the mineral expositions. All right, these mountains prevent Pakistan from Western depressions. Western depressions are, again, heavy winds that flow from these northern parts or the western parts of the western borders to Pakistan. So we're going to study about Western depressions in detail in the upcoming chapters of climate and rainfalls. But for now, just know that Western depressions are basically sort of winds that carry heavy rain. They carry out heavy rainfall. So these mountains, they also act as a natural barrier to these Western depression winds. All right, next, there are important military centers, namely Kohat and Banu. Again, yeah, the military, there are a lot of military centers located in the Western Mountains as well. We're done with the Western Mountains, the general discussion. Guys, is there any questions so far? No. All right. Shafak, are you also clear? Should we move on? I'm guessing you're clear. Okay, go to a plateau, guys. So plateaus now. We now see moving from the mountains to the plateaus, and then we're going to move on to the plains and then to the desert areas. So we're done with the mountain ranges, the northern, the western mountains. Um, in fact, before moving on to the plateau, let's just write down a question here. You can attempt this question later, but for now, let's just write it down because it is important. So the question here is that how does the lifestyle of people in the western mountains, in the western mountain regions differ uh, with the lifestyle of people in the northern mountains? Guys, you can note this question down or you can take a screenshot. All right, this is the question that we'll be attempting after we're done studying this, okay? So just note it down or take a screenshot. Should we move on? Yeah, are you guys done noting it down? All right, we're moving on then. Okay, so Portova Plateau now. Portova Plateau, if you descend downwards from the northmost side of the country to the southern regions, there's just a second. Okay, so for example, I'm going to draw this map here for you. So assuming that this is the entire map of the country, roughly, this is Pakistan, okay? So this is the point. I'm going to mark these with blue. This is where the northern mountains are located, okay? And this is where the western mountains are located. And this is the point, let's mark it with a yellow. This is the point where the Portova Plateau is located. All right. And then we're going to also be studying Balochistan Plateau, and this is roughly where Balochistan Plateau is located. So just know these rough locations. So now we're basically descending from the northern mountains, from the western mountains to the plateau. This is where we are. And this is where the federal capital, Islamabad, Rawalpindi, all of these cities are located. Okay. All right, it is an open plateau with undulating land and an extensive flat area. Yeah, it has a lot of flat land with these ridges, with these, you could say, different variations in altitudes. I mean, those variations aren't very significant, but yes, they are. So the height varies from 300 to 600 meters. You see how the height has significantly decreased from the northern mountains to the plateaus. It has residual hills named Khairi Murad, Kala Chita range up to 1,000 meters. These are some of the residual hills, not the mountains, but the hills. The hills are basically lower than the mountains in terms of the altitudes. It has badland topography, troughs, ravines, landscapes of ridges. What are troughs? What are ravines? Lowlands, high areas, ridges, I mean, this rough landscape, basically, a rough topography. Why is it called badland topography? Because all of these are not very suitable for the cultivation of crops. You can't grow crops in such an area. Why? Because I mean, you need a flat land for agricultural activities, and Portova Plateau is not a flat land. It does, I mean, it has some portions of flat lands, but most of it is a badland topography. It has parallel salt ranges. Salt ranges are very, very famous. This is a famous landmark of the Portova Plateau. An example of salt ranges is the Kewra salt mines. I'm going to write this name down for you. So Khewra, Kewra salt mines. They're located on the Portova Plateau. Guys, you can even search about these mines. They are one of the largest salt mines in the world. And I mean, most of the salt produced from these mines is, sent to different parts of the country, and it's also exported to other countries. Drainage. The drainage includes River Swan, Uchali, Habeki, and Kalarkahar. These are all the rivers that carry water from the valleys. There's obviously no snow, but because of the economical activities, the water definitely needs a drainage outwards from the plateau. So from all of these residential areas, the valleys where the people live, not exactly the valleys, but the areas of plateau where the people live, right? So these River Soha, Uchali, Habeki, and the Kalarkahar, these are the rivers that take water. They provide water and outlet to flow towards the rivers. Economy and the people. So the Potava Plateau here has, if we generally compare the lifestyles of people on the northern mountains, western mountains, and the plateau, I would say that the people live, comparatively a modern lifestyle here, because they practice, they practice a very settled lifestyle. If you compare it to the northern mountains, guys, because of extreme winters, people tend to travel downwards towards the lower land areas. This is what nomadic living is. So they spend nomadic lifestyle in the northern and the western mountains, but on the Potava Plateau, they are very well settled. They don't practice nomadic lifestyle. They don't practice transhumance. This area is also rich in minerals, for example, limestone, gypsum, dolomite, clay. It has oil and gas fields. Attak Oil Refinery is a refinery that is located on the Potava Plateau, because and right next to the oil fields. The moment you extract the oil, you can also refine it, and it's ready to be sent to the to other parts of the country, and even it is exported to other countries. On Potava Plateau, through rainwater, wheat, barley, maize are cultivated. So these are important crops. You see, these are not really the important ones, but yes, some of the crops, they can be cultivated. But you'll see the agricultural activity on the Indus Plains. This is nothing compared to that Indus Plains agricultural activity. Okay, so just an overview of the economy and the people: a settled lifestyle, a little agriculture, rich in minerals, oil fields, oil refinery, more job opportunities, because an urban lifestyle is practiced. It's an urban area. Islamabad is the federal capital of Pakistan, and it is the third largest city of the country, and also one of the most well-planned and modern cities. Balochistan Plateau. Before moving on to the plateau, guys, I would want to ask a few questions from you guys here, just to test the concepts here. First of all, I have this question from Ahmed. Ahmed, how would you compare the lifestyles of people living in the northern mountains and with that of people living on the Potava Plateau? Ahmed, are you there? All right, could you maybe unmute yourself and speak up if that's not a problem, just so it's convenient for me as well?
So the ones on the plateau are more settled and have a more rich lifestyle.
Right.
And the ones in the mountain are more nomadic because they move south when winter comes.
Right.
It's quite cold.
Could you also name some of the sources of earnings, because we've studied northern mountains in detail? So how would you talk about the sources of earning, the sources of income for the people in the northern mountains and for the Apache?
Plateau is like there's salt mines there and also oil.
Yeah.
And the northern mountain would be more agriculture.
Yeah. And cottage industries, right?
Yeah.
We talked about the cottage industries. Agriculture is only practiced on the northern mountains in summers, because in winters, due to heavy snowfall, it's extremely difficult to practice agriculture. Okay, so people tend to practice cottage industries They stay in their homes, they make those handicrafts, carpets, clay, pottery, and all of these local products. And then they sell those products during tourism seasons, which is generally summer. Yeah, so these are the major sources of incomes of people in the northern mountains. Whereas if you look at the Portable Plateau, agriculture is somewhat, a source of income, but because it's an urban lifestyle, people have permanent jobs there. They work in the multinational corporations. They have these oil refineries, right? So yeah, so this is how you're going to compare the lifestyle of these two topographies. With that, we're starting off with the Balochistan Plateau. Balochistan Plateau is, I did tell you about the location of this plateau. It has ridges, eroded landscape. This is just how the topography is. It's not as good as the topography of the Portable Plateau, which was itself a barren topography. So you can imagine that Balochistan Plateau is very barren. It's not suitable for vegetation at all, right? So Toba Kakar, Hala, Rasko, Makran Coast, these are all the ranges. Also, there are some irregular depressions, the Hope basins. Basins are all of these areas that are created. So there are two kinds of basins, inland and outland basins. Inland basins are the areas where water is collected inland. For example, when it rains, the water flows and it gets collected in certain areas known as the basins. Outland basins are those areas where the water flows from the inland area, from all of the residential areas to let's say a major river outside or the sea eventually, because the water gets deposited in the Arabian Sea. On the western side, there are inland drainage basins. There is Las Bela Plain that is marked by sand dunes and gravel. It has Makran Coast, which has a narrow coastal plain. So, yeah, drainage. If you look at the drainage, first of all, you should also know the names: Hingol, Dasht, Hub, Paroli. These are the important drainage rivers. There are temporary salt lakes as well: Hamoon, Hamoon Lora, Hamoon Mashkal. These are the important salt lakes. Salt lakes are basically the temporary water collection points where the water gets collected, right? And later they get dried up. And if you notice, when water gets dried up, evaporated, the leftover, all of the, you could say, the salt gets formed on the surface of the salt lake. This is why it's called a salt lake. Salt, the formation of mineral salt is, an observable white color. You can also observe that in a domestic boiling process. If you boil water, if you evaporate it, you'll see leftover white minerals at the bottom of the container. This is exactly what happens there. So economy and people. If you talk about the lifestyle, so Balochistan Plateau is very rich in terms of the minerals. There are crude oil, coal deposits, natural gas deposits. So there's this natural gas exploration called the Sui gas, which is explored from this place known as Sui in Balochistan. It is, it supplies 70-75% of gas to the entire Pakistan, and that gas is basically produced in Balochistan. The economy is through livestock, its products, fishing at Ormara, Gwadar, Pasi. These are the three ports located in Balochistan. Fishing activities are common. Livestock agriculture is common. Livestock agriculture is when you keep animals for the agricultural processes, for example, obtaining wool, eggs, meat, etc. Okay. Vegetable industry, seed industry, fruits industry, all of these are very common in the over there, because yeah, certain seeds, vegetables, and fruits, they grow in certain seasons, especially in winters. Balochistan's economic potential. Now we're going to analyze how we've studied the lifestyle, we've studied how the climate is, how the topography is. Now we're going to analyze how much potential this area has. If we develop Balochistan Plateau, can it serve the economy of Pakistan? If so, to what extent? Okay, so gold and antimony reserves. So this indicates that if we explore the gold reserves, we could use that as a raw material for the industries, and we can even export that, right? Secondly, by using the untapped resources of Balochistan, Pakistan economy can be uplifted. By untapped, we're talking about the natural gas, we're talking about all these minerals, we're talking about these gold reserves, all right? Crude oil, coal, natural gas, present Balochistan, electricity can be generated, definitely. Many fruits grow, melons, peaches, grapes, apples, dates, pomegranates, peaches, plums. So you can export these fruits, right? Um, I mean, Pakistan is already exporting these fruits to the Gulf countries. So this is, I mean, this is great potential, and trade could be further improved by adding value to these products, and that could directly affect the economy. Climate is suitable. I mean, it's not extremely cold, it's not extremely hot. So certain vegetables are very suitable. Certain vegetable seeds are grown there because of the moderate climate. Then modern technology. I mean, we can also improve the exports from these three ports, Gwadar, Urmara, and Pasni, because we're already exporting fish to the other. Sri Lanka is one of the major importers of Pakistani fish. So this is again a potential. We can improve the fishing methods. We can improve the storage facilities. We can add value to the fishing products, and this could definitely improve the exports of the fishing products from the Balochistan Plateau, and that will obviously directly affect the economy. Talking about the shortcomings, now these were the potentials. This is how we can generate economy. We can benefit our economy by using the potential of Balochistan Plateau. Now there are some shortcomings. By shortcomings, we mean that either these resources, either this potential isn't explored by the government, or there are certain problems that are not letting this you could say this potential to be fully explored. So the weather is extremely dry. It's favorable for certain vegetables, certain agricultural practices, but because it's dry, the working conditions aren't favorable. So people, they don't, I mean, the people who work over there, they, I mean, the companies, they don't really provide that sort of lifestyle to the workers. If you talk about the coal mines, there are certain coal mines in Balochistan as well. So the coal miners, they live a very, very, you could say, a low standard lifestyle, because they're forced to work up to 24 hours in a coal mine in under extreme heat conditions. But again, the companies, they don't facilitate. There could be maybe lack of funding or any other reasons, we don't know. So yeah, this is why the working conditions are extremely unfavorable, extremely and especially in summers. Low population density. I mean, the governments, the agencies are not interested in exploring the potential of Balochistan, because they think that what's the point of doing that? But the population is being fed already. I mean, there are enough resources to feed the population, the current population of Balochistan. And because the population density is so low, there's no point of exploring the potential further. This is another shortcoming. Furthermore, there are not enough skilled individuals in the workforce. Again, the companies, they need to hire people for the workforce, and they don't. Reasons could be corruption, maybe lack of government funds, and the international companies, they're usually not interested in working here. And why? Maybe unfavorable government policies. The reason why I'm telling you all of these all of these explanations with every point is that you need to justify every reason. When you write a point, you're also asked to justify that, and you should be able to do that. Okay. The province has a shortage of water, making it difficult to provide proper irrigation. Again, because of the extreme dry climate in summers, it's difficult for the people to store water. There are insufficient water supplies as well. I mean, no important rivers. Then obviously there are no proper dams or reservoirs to store water. And obviously, when the water storage is of such low capacity, it will definitely affect the irrigation as well. It's difficult to provide water through irrigation to the plants. I mean, obviously, when the rainfall in winters is low, and summers as well, because summers are extremely dry. When the rainfall is low, obviously you'll need to depend on irrigation to grow the plants. And when obviously the irrigation techniques are also not developed, the crops are at risk. This is another shortcoming. The infrastructure is bad. There are weak link roads limiting the travel and trade. People are not very educated. Lack of education is another point. Landscape is eroded, rugged terrain, ridges, making it impossible to complete the projects on time. Yeah, because the transportation isn't developed, the roads, all of these networks aren't really developed. And one of the reasons for this lack of development is the difficult landscape. It requires a lot of effort to basically construct this infrastructure in this area. Walaikum assalam. All right, so what we were doing up till now was a general comparison of the potential, the exploration of the economic potential of Balochistan and the shortcomings. This is a very important, you could say, a level marking question in your exam as well. You'll generally be asked to talk about the potential and the shortcomings side by side in form of a single question. I'm going to introduce you to that question right now. 6-mark questions are very important for this history and for this environment of Pakistan. A question could be designed somewhat: to what extent is it possible to develop Balochistan Plateau? So, to what extent is it possible to develop the Balochistan Plateau? It's a 6-mark question. Emmett, please take a screenshot of this as well. Now, in such a question, what you need to do is you need to write 3 points for the potentials. I mean, how can you develop this plateau? And 3 points for the shortcomings. All right. All of these 3 points should be properly developed with the help of examples and justifications. Let's talk about this. Ahmed, can you tell me? Let's just pick up 1 point each, 1 problem and 1 potential. Could you generally present a comparison, an analysis, and then an evaluation agreeing with one side? Could you do that?
Yeah, okay, so one weakness is that there's low population density.
Okay. And how would you explain that?
And, so there's only a few, there's not that much population, so the government is interested in investing in the province.
All right, yes. This last statement that you said, the government isn't interested in investing, this is very important because this is where you're actually answering the question. Okay. Just be very sure to connect your answer to the question. Okay. Now the potential.
What do you say? I didn't hear you.
I was saying that this last statement that you just said, how the government isn't interested in investing because of the low population density. This is the most important statement. This is where you're actually answering the question, and it's important to link your answer to the question. Okay. When you write a point, you elaborate and then you analyze it. This was actually an analysis. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the potential.
They're using the crude oil and natural gas there in Balochistan.
And how is that helping the plateau get developed?
Companies, multinational companies will invest, and it will provide more jobs for the Balochistan people.
More jobs for the locals. Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, if the exports, let's not talk about the exports, if the exploration would increase, it's a source of generation of more income, right, for the locals. The companies would be more interested. There will be more exploration. Government would design favorable policies for the companies to work here, and that would consequently increase or improve the lifestyle of the people living here. So now we've discussed 1 point for the potential and 1 for the problems. Which side do you agree with? What's your evaluation now?
Probably the problems.
The problems, I mean, so you're saying it's difficult to develop the plateau, so we should just leave it as it is.
Yeah.
And how would you justify this evaluation?
Because there's a low population density, there's not enough skilled workers.
Okay. So there's no point of investing so much.
Yeah.
And we could invest in some other area, maybe the Indus Plains, maybe the Potawar Plateau, right, where the population density is greater. Okay.
Yeah.
Be comparative, right? If you're telling that it's not wise to invest in the Balochistan Plateau, then give an alternative as well. That where should the government invest? Okay. This is how your answer is going to become strong. All right. So this is how you attempt a 6-mark question. You write 3 points for the potential, 3 points for the problems, and then at the end, you provide an evaluation that which side is possible, okay, or which side you agree with.
Yeah.
That is it. You can start attempting the questions. one regarding the comparison of northern western mountains, and the second one, which is this Balochistan Plateaus question. And you can submit both of the answers in the group as soon as you're done. All right. 11 p.m.
And what about the?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And what about the question that I was supposed to yesterday? What about that one?
Yeah. Have you done that question?
I've done like half of it. It'll take me like maybe 10, 20 minutes to finish it. Yes.
Okay. So you can send it with this assignment. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. You can send both of these assignments together then.
Okay.
All right.
Excuse me,
So
sir.